even more on applying modern technologies as a primary concern to realize ambitions of our Vision 2050. Challenges of agricultural production like biophysical aspects, land degradation, are major environmental problems in all types of land use systems in Rwanda, translated into different types of soil erosion, landslides, flooding, in particular in the higher altitude zones, steep topography, and intense rainfall from El Nino events further exacerbate the degradation process. The contribution of bench terraces through land consolidation program has contributed to controlling erosion and creating a more productive ecology. But some of these terraces are still underexploited due to low productivity, low capacity of knowledge of farmers for the management of terraces, coupled with low involvement of private sector, which is increasing more and more. Ladies and gentlemen, the addressing land degradation and other environmental problems that cause low productivity, livestock and tree and the sustainability of land management require even more increasing efforts to improve research and technology transfer in soil conservation and watershed management, soil fertility management, agroforestry, pasture land management, climate change adaptation, and so forth. Irrigation. The country's studies which have shown that the country has a potential irrigable land, about 600,000 hectares. We are currently at 53,000 hectares, and we are targeting to reach at least 102,000 hectares by 2024. We still are far below 20% of what is potentially irrigable land in the country, and the government is increasing efforts to reach a much more sizable of irrigated land. Much of this 53,000 hectares which are irrigated is mainly in the marshland, about 37,000 hectares that are irrigated, and about 8,000 hillside irrigation, while again another about 7,000 hectares is small-scale irrigation technologies applied. Government of Rwanda will continue to increase our area under irrigation, and the partnership of the various stakeholders, private sector, development partners is of paramount importance. A continuing rate of technology change that continues to push agricultural production with the possibility of pushing frontiers outwards is central to continuing to produce more with less resources. This is related to the need for stronger agricultural innovation system into a comprehensive, integrated land husbandry approach and soil fertility management, taking into account land and water information systems, land water resources, technologies in biotechnology, animal resources production technologies, technologies in the food processing, post-harvest value addition, and so forth. Collaboration between various institutions, including the universities, research centers, in regional and international development partners, and various stakeholders, seed companies, multipliers of seeds, the value chain across processing and marketing, all these efforts of these, including financial institutions, bankers, and many more, research organizations and others. Efforts of all these stakeholders is of paramount importance in order to translate the research, innovation, and technology into tangible results that we see in improving farmers' livelihoods, that we see with tangible changes in agricultural transformation as ambitioned in our policies and strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, as I was requested to emphasize on research and with Rwanda's status of research, let me, in the next few words, say that research in Rwanda has a long history that has been encountered by many challenges. The agricultural research in Rwanda dates back to the years 1930s, around 1937. But it started with the institution that was the former institution, you know, this Rwanda Agriculture Board. It was a merger of three institutions: the Rwanda Agricultural Research Institute, which was called IZAR, and other institutions which were in charge of extension, the Rwanda Agriculture Development Authority and the Rwanda Animal Resources Development Authority. So this IZAR was created in the 1930s. At that time, it was a response to a famine. In the 1930s, there was a terrible famine in the country, and at the end of that famine, the farmers had consumed even the seeds. So even when the rains came around, the farmers were not even able to plant because they had even eaten even the seed for survival. So the country realized it was a big challenge to at least have research and ability to conserve seeds and the ability to provide seeds. It started as a seed mainly focused research institution. And a center was created in a place in the south of Rwanda called Rubona. Started as a seed multiplication center. And it grew into a fully fledged institute, which came to have different stations, 12 stations in the different agroecologies of Rwanda. By 1960, it had branches in the 12 different agroecologies of Rwanda. This institution has developed a lot of technologies, mainly in the development of varieties up to now. Up to 80 different varieties of crops have been bred by the Rwanda Agricultural Research System. But around the 1994, the country's agricultural research system had a terrible blow, suffered a lot as the rest of the country went through the genocide and destruction of the country, and the research system was severely affected. By 1994, the country had 70 scientists in agricultural research, at least focusing on that main institution of agricultural research. But by 1995, when the institution reopened, it had only 5 scientists. And the rest of the 70, they were either killed in the genocide, or they fled the country, or others had participated in the genocide and they were in the prison because of the genocide perpetration. So it was a very difficult moment to rebuild the research system from the 1950s, 1990s. And by 2010, the institution had again been rebuilt with close to 100 scientists. And up to now, currently, the institution has got 420 permanent staff, the Rwanda Agriculture Board, and half of them are mostly involved in the research at different levels, and almost an equal number of contractual staff. But this is not the only institution of agricultural research in the country. Also, we have universities that conduct research, and collaboration is increasing with the different institutions in the country. The country's agricultural research system has developed, has recently released hybrid varieties like these Rwanda hybrid varieties of maize, RHM varieties, like the RHM 1407, 1402, 104, which are yielding around 7 to 8 tons per hectare, much more than the OPVs. Also, various other crops like beans, high-yielding varieties have been developed, and crops like rice, all the major crops, wheat, and others, mostly in partnership with the international CG system. And research in all other areas also has significantly advanced. Research is contributing to addressing new and emerging challenges that require expanding traditional research to new areas of research and innovation. Despite significant efforts in the increasing food security, malnutrition in Rwanda requires a big challenge. More than 37% in malnutrition, and an unacceptable high rate of malnutrition for a country like Rwanda that is renowned for remarkable achievements in most areas of human development. So research and innovation, we have to be strengthened in this area. There are many technologies like biofortified crops, enriched with vitamins, which can help in the alleviation of malnutrition. These improved biofortified crops have been developed, but now we have to take them to the farmer. We have to increase availability to the farmer of these crops, like biofortified higher iron beans, like orange fresh sweet potatoes, and many more that can significantly help to alleviate malnutrition, combat malnutrition. Also, apart from the traditional crops, there are more and more new crops, high-value crops like horticulture. Interest in horticulture has increased, and we are seeing more and more increased development of horticulture subsector in Rwanda. But research in this area has to be more strengthened to ensure that this subsector is sustainably developing. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I get close to the end of my remarks, I would like to once again call upon for the joint efforts of the various stakeholders, development partners, research organizations. We can't single-handedly, each of one of us, make a significant impact in the innovation, agricultural development in the country if we don't join our effort and create synergies. We highly appreciate institutions like financial institutions like the Bank of Kigali, for instance, the partnership that we started with them to increase availability of inputs through smarter ways of increasing availability of inputs to the farmers, and the recent program for the increasing lending in the agriculture sector. Such are the initiatives that are of paramount importance to drive transformation that when are coupled with research and innovation, they yield very high dividends. So we encourage partnerships like these in other sectors as well, and various stakeholders. And for sure, together we can. With these, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for your attention and look forward to interactive session and fruitful deliberations of this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Karangwa, DG. I think he deserves another clap. Thank you very much. We've had some very, very good messages there, but I will not attempt to go through all that. Let me just recognize, colleagues, that today we've got key organizations and individuals represented at this meeting. We must actually recognize that all key organizations in agriculture, agribusiness, and investment are here today. We've got the Ministry of Agriculture in full force, Ministry of Local Government in full force, other government institutions, academia, high learning institutions, all represented. We also have development partners in a big way, just in case I'm letting you know so you can find your way towards them. We've got World Bank here, we've got the EU, we've got DFID, we've got UNDP, we've got IFAD, we've got AFDB, African Development Bank, USAID, FAO, and JICA. They're also here. We also have financial institutions represented, Development Bank of Rwanda, Bank of Kigali, and the access to finance. We also have private sector, seed companies, those who are dealing with fertilizer, mechanization, and even the private sector federation itself is also represented. So please, let's give ourselves a clap. I forgot, we also have research institutions, CIAT, SIP, IITA are also represented here. So you're all welcome. On that note, our hashtag If you would like to contribute, it's right there at Prosperity Through Technology. And we are running live. So please contribute on that, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube for us. I would like at this point, therefore, to invite Dr. Dennis Chetere, Executive Director, AATF, and Monica, you'll help me through that process. And at this point, the lights can be dimmed. This is, I think, the only session where the lights can be dimmed, just so that we can see the presentation. So Dr. Chetere. Do you have, I think you need the, let me bring it.
Thank you very much, Nancy. May we please have lights at least this side off so that the slides can be seen. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I want to thank you very much on behalf of RAB and the AATF for organizing this, for giving us your time out of your busy schedule to come and be with us at this discussion this morning. Let me recognize our host, our Permanent Secretary, Miniagri, who has just left, our Director General and his high-level representative of RAB, our Chair of the AATF board and the board members here, our investors. Maybe to be protocol-wise, safe, let me borrow a Nigerian expression, because as you have heard what Nancy said, everybody is high-level represented here, and say, let me stand on the existing protocol. Having stood on the existing protocol, I just want to share with you how about, a brief on AATF and how we are contributing as an anchor for sustainable technology development and catalytic transformation in agriculture development, and also share with you what we already, and I'm glad to appreciate the Director General RAB, the discussions we're already having between RAB and AATF and how we can collaborate together. So those are just a few areas I'll talk about. Just in brief, what is AATF? AATF is an African-based, African-led organization that is contributing to the empowering of smallholder farmers across South Africa with agricultural innovations that generate wealth and health. And I will emphasize our contribution to this agricultural transformation is through the realization of prosperity through technology. And we have our promise, of which we'd like to share with you. I hope, Monica, it works.
We believe that the future of Africa
Volume.
lies in its vast land. We believe the future is in the hands of those who walk the fields. For those are the hands that feed nations and ensure a better and more productive Africa. We believe in those hands, and that is why we too bring our hands in support of them. Our hands come bearing technologies and solutions that ensure their effort is not in vain, but deliver results that ensure a sustainable, prosperous, and food-secure Africa. At AATF, we are driving transformation of livelihoods in sub-Saharan Africa through innovative agricultural technologies that deliver results. We promise to deliver prosperity through technology.
Yeah, and that is our promise to deliver prosperity through technology. I will not be going through details of these slides, but this is to emphasize, and this slide is to emphasize that there's, in the past we've been negative reporting, but there is a lot that has happened on this continent. And there's a lot that should happen and will happen. But here's to emphasize that, is this working? Yeah, that the African farmers can still do better, but still presently, they often lack of tools, technologies, and knowledge to become more positive is one of the hindrances among the many. And as they are making progress, we are having new challenges. We are talking of climate change. We are talking of new pests and diseases. I hope some of you have heard of the fall armyworm that was indigenous in South America, that now is in Africa and even East Asia. But above all, our belief, and which is something the continent is aiming at, is investing in new farming technology, from better seeds to digital tools to machinery, is our best of opportunity transforming African agriculture into an engine of economic growth beyond the farm sector. And that's why our getting together this morning is to discuss how we can all contribute to this. A little bit about AATF. We are in our strategy phase of 2018-2022. And our vision, like many of the organizations, is to have a prosperous and food secure Africa. But where AATF adds the value of it is transforming through innovative agricultural technologies. And what defines us and what guides what we champion is our three core values of integrity, of dedication, and being accessible to work together in all. We have three driving strategic objectives, which range from diversifying agricultural technologies, getting as many of the technologies that are lacking in the value chain onto the African continent, not only from outside, but even within the continent. There are those which are still standing on the shelf. Getting agriculture from subsistence to a business, accelerating commercialization of these technologies for improved farmers' livelihoods. And as we'll be seeing, you can have the best of the technologies, but without an enabling environment, you cannot go very fast. So we participate in creating an environment and creating an enabling environment for the uptake of these technologies. We measure ourselves through 5 impact areas. This is to emphasize that we want to see access of state of technology leading to food and nutrition security and increased income, benefiting both the youth, women, and the children. I was very glad when you heard this morning the PS talk of the 4 pillars, and these are very well in rhythm with what our impact areas are on productivity stress management, mechanization and digital agriculture, market systems for commercialization, policy environment and public participation, and also in the area of food, of nutrition, food quality, and post-harvest, which rhythm very well with the agricultural policy. Just a little bit of what we bring on board as AATF. The part of playing as a technology transfer organization is in the acquisition of these technologies. At first, our emphasis was those technologies that had intellectual property rights on them, which would negotiate and access royalty-free, so that at the end, when they reach the farmer, they don't have the royalty cost on it. And these days, we even go for the business technologies that bring business in the countries through the local seed companies. We participate in the management of these partnerships. One thing I should emphasize is that in all we are doing, it is with partnerships both by the public and private sector. And we help in that management in the adoption, testing, and validation, and also participate in the delivery of these technologies, where we provide stewardship services, and we'll bring about a number of deployment models and scaling and technical by stopping. And all this working again with different partnerships on creating an enabling environment in terms of the best production practices in awareness creation, in the input systems, policies and harmonizations, the regulatory system, and above all, advocacy, working through both public-private partnerships to commercialize agriculture through the uptake of these technologies and the increased adoption, and contributing to the comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program Sustainable Development Goals in the areas of food nutrition, poverty alleviation, and improved livelihoods. This is to share with you a summary of the target strategic crops working on cereals, from maize, rice to palm to sorghum, roots and tubers, cassava, potato, and bananas, playing different roles depending on the development, on the projects and the activities going on legumes, on cowpea, groundnuts, and soybeans, and then tomatoes. And in the different thematic or impact areas from climate change, pest management, seed systems, breeding, and mechanization. One thing I must say that for AATF, what we bring in the value chain is what is the challenge, what is the problem at hand, and what are the available solutions, and what value can we add on. So we look at all possible areas, whether it is biotechnology and all conventional or chemical others, and see what can add value to increase in the productivity and the value chain. And we look at both, depending on the crop and the challenge, on the methods that can be, the approaches that can be used to solve that problem, both on the biotechnology and the conventional, as you'll be seeing what we have done. Just a summary, we are a 16 years old organization created in 2003. And as a technology transfer organization, one area where we have been successful in accessing these technologies, about 18 of them worth $400 million US dollars. We are participating in 15 projects in the public-private partnerships across 23 countries. We are working with over 95 partnerships, and must emphasize, through these partnerships that we are able to reach as many areas as possible, and I'm glad our discussions with Rob is going to increase on these partnerships. We are seeing an average increase of from 100 to 400% across the projects work with, giving an example of cassava project where we see an increase of 300%. We are working in 12 crop value chains, as you saw on the previous slide. And above all, one of the areas which I must say we proudly work in, because biotechnology, and especially when it comes to transgenic on this continent, it has been a debated area like all over the world. But at least as one of the tools in solving one of the problems in crop production and productivity, we are addressing through 4 projects. We're using, biotechnology, well as a method in general, but also in the development of transgenics in cowpea, in rice, or playing a legal advisor on bananas. And that's one area which we have pioneered on the African continent. That's our footprint. We are in 23 countries in Africa now. A lot of concentration in East and Southern Africa, but I'm glad we are gaining traction in West Africa, and very soon also in Central Africa. And all this is through partnerships, because we are a 46 staff with headquartered at Nairobi, with about 6 staff in Abuja, Nigeria. Just to give you some case examples of the things we do, I'm not going to go into the details, but share with you, show what AATF is doing and what is contributing and what we are looking for partnerships to work together in order to reach more farmers in more countries. On maize, we've been talking of climate change, which is real, and they could reduce yields by 25% if nothing's done. There are a number of challenges, from droughts, destructive insects like the stem boilers, armyworm, some of the new diseases which were not in the continent, that the maize necrotic disease that appeared in this continent in 2012, the striga which has been around, And a few of the examples of what we have done through the partnerships, we have one of the projects now, it is in the second phase, the former water efficient maize for Africa, development of drought-tolerant maize and insect-protected maize, both conventional and transgenic. And we see, so far 117 hybrids in the last 10 years having been released in the 5 participating countries. I must say this was been one of the biggest partnerships with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, the former Monsanto, the 5 national agricultural research systems of these countries and others. And when I talk of partnerships, have developed these 117 in the last 10 years. And and I'm glad the number of the scientists who are here, developing varieties while it has been taking 10, 15 years, but because of partnerships and bring the different germplasm of different, attributes on board to achieve that. And of these, 36 are already being commercialized by the different local seed companies on these countries, and in fact, even expanding outside the sphere of these countries. This is just an example to show an average on farmers' fields of getting 4.9% compared to the national average. This is the Kenya example, and the commercial varieties, and the yield difference of 3%. And these are figures, but if you had to put them in bags per hectare, that's a lot of addition during the drought-tolerant period. Just a quick look also on this transgenic, there's the stem borers, and one of the best controls of the stem borers using this transgenic maize, the BT maize. And now that we have the fall armyworm, if I give example of the Latin America countries where it's been controlled by BT, and we find even this BT that was not meant for the stem borers, but rather it was meant for stem borers and not for armyworm. But we find it's even now in the fields of farmers giving significant reduction or improvement in the yield when the fall armyworm comes in. But we also got genes that now can control the fall armyworm, and this is some of the things we shall be working with countries. So getting an average yield of 52% over the BT versus the non-BT is quite a big contribution on the increasing productivity. And as I said, it is not only to say that BT, but at least what is the problem and what is the best solution that is available that can be used on this continent. I talked of the maize-resistant necrotic disease, again working with the partnerships of CIMMYT and national research systems. In 3 years, we were able to come up with resistant, tolerant hybrids. As you can see, the commercial one being hit, and the tolerant ones that were developed within 3 years, which is a record time in getting solutions to some of these challenges on board, and again emphasizing through the partnerships. On the control of striga using a herbicide, you are giving example of where this lady, Monica Kinyin, Western Kenya, who used to get some 40 kilograms from her half acre, but having employed the striga waste technology, started getting 450 from 40. What an increase is that? These are some of the live examples that happens on the smallholder farmers. But what we need is to have them replicated in many rather than having just islands of success. On rice, I'm glad during the panel, a number of these things will be discussed in details, but touch a little bit on it. Rice consumption on this continent has been rising by 6-12%, while the production is 3-4%. These two figures can never match, and that's why we find we are importing a lot, and yet we find some of the countries like Asia being self-sufficient. Why not on the African countries? So one of the things we have, again, through the public-private partnerships, is introducing hybrid rice on this continent. It is Egypt which has been leading on the African continent, but we're working in Kenya and Tanzania. In fact, Kenya has already released 5 rice hybrids. And the one beauty is that most of the hybrids that are available on the continent, the parents are usually they don't belong to the seed companies. They come from, they are multiplied abroad and brought in. So through these partnerships, we are availing these local seed companies, the parents of these hybrid seeds, which yield even up to 10 tons per hectare. But on farmers' fields, 6-7 tons. And this is rain-fed, by the way, not irrigated. So these are some of the examples, and I'm glad in our discussions with Rwanda, this is one of the areas we are talking about. On mechanization and the digital agriculture, just touch a bit to give an example of, the challenges of South Africa, of Sub-Saharan Africa being the least mechanized, and the low use of mechanization undermines the competitiveness of African farmers, and mechanization and digital agriculture can inject competitiveness and open markets for the continent by the farmers. So why not use it also? Just an example of cassava, one of the production problems of affecting productivity in cassava is river productivity. But mechanizing cassava production, both from land preparation has been there. But planting cassava, the example of planting is not here, but planting cassava using machineries where even attracting youth back, having youth to come and sit in tractors and plant and have weed and harvest. We are seeing an increase from 7 to 9 tons to an average of 25 tons. In fact, we are working in the 4 countries, Nigeria, Uganda, Zambia, and now Tanzania. But a farmer in Tanzania was able to get, not in Tanzania, in Zimbabwe, Mr. Mushiri, was able to get 56 tons per hectare on his farm. And that is, more than the averages of the Thailands of this continent. It can happen. Just make use of mechanization and the right agricultural practices and the right varieties. And in fact, now in Nigeria, there's demand for the starchy varieties and others, so that you see specialized markets coming out and increase production and productivity. Just an example of some of the gains through the mechanization of cassava production, where you use 30 days with the manual, 1.5 hours, 8 days of land preparation, 45. You go through it, getting an average of 7 to 9 tons, now 25 to 45, and an increase of 2,300 of 2,300 and 3,500 US dollars per hectare. I mean, it might look a small figure, but when you are the person on the farm down there where I come from in my village, that is a lot of money. Just touch a little bit also on some of the social enterprises bringing different models of commercialization on the continent. This is one of the examples of AgriDrive to address agricultural challenges. But not only that, but also as AATF to participate in increasing the reach of farmers in the different countries we work on. Just this is, we are currently in Nigeria, much more. Kenya, we just registered, and providing mechanization services and, showing the business that can be done. And I'm glad a number of private individuals in Nigeria have taken up mechanization of cassava, and even now going to maize and rice, both throughout the value chain, including connection to the markets. It's not only increasing productivity, but also connection to the markets and agro-processors, so that the local farmers are able to sell their products at better prices. I'm glad when the Director General Rabo was talked of quality seed and agribusinesses, we're participating in that. There are a number of benefits from using quality seed, and I'm glad even one of the there's a recognition of quality seed, but then one of the challenges is what they call foundation seed. From, the usual, when the breeders breed, they breed a small amount, which is good, the breeder seed, but to get it to the commercialization of it or certified seed, the foundation seeds is one of the problems that is the smallholder farmers don't afford, and the big companies can. But if you recall number, and I'm glad that some of the seed companies are here, and this is one of the challenges. We have tried to do some things on that. By one of the things is also bringing quality seeds into the market. There's one of projects, Seeds to Be, Seeds Business, where we link seed owners to local companies to access some of these seeds, especially in the horticultural crops. If you all know that the horticultural crops are not bred very much on the African continent. We import a lot of seeds. So why can't we connect the local seed companies to the other, in fact, there's some of the international organizations, the Vegetable Research Center in Arusha, which also produces some of the seeds, but they are not accessed by the seed companies. Just making those connections so that the seed companies can make money and produce and avail them to the market at the right time, the right quantity, and what the market demands. That's one of the areas where we're participating, and here there's some of the pictures where representatives from the breeding organizations and local seed companies are evaluating some of these horticultural crops. I talked of the foundation seed. We are incubating a company which is with headquarters in Nairobi, but with hubs in Zambia and South Africa, where its main purpose is to only produce foundation seed so that the seed companies can pay for the services. Those who cannot manage, it's an expensive business, but those who cannot manage, hire them out to get them a foundation seed. And I'm glad so far it's now 2 years coming 3 years in production, and has attracted over 30 seed companies. And I think even the general manager with one of my colleagues, they were here about a year ago, discussion on how we can work together with some of the seed companies. And these are some of the, business models we are bringing on the ground in order to boost agricultural production and productivity. Enabling environment, as we have said, this is one of the areas, but we need to have a more receptive, SaaS-based legal, regulatory, commercial environment that they will deliver these safe technologies to the market. You can have the best of the technologies, but if you don't have the right environment, they will just be talked about, and that will be the end of it. So we're participating again through different partners in different countries, see that at least there is an improvement in the regulatory and policies that favor technology uptake. This is to show how it was in 2006 compared to 2018, the improvement that has been done, in the regulatory terrain on the African continent. There is a lot of progress that is happening, and I'm glad, with time, you find most of these African countries more on functional policies covering a number of these areas, and that will at least contribute to the uptake of the agricultural technologies. Again, we're participating in the policy advocacy. At the moment, we are working in 7 countries. This is much more raised through one of the projects called Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology in Africa, OFAB, to raise understanding and appreciation of agricultural biotechnology and contributing to enabling environment for decision makers. And the focal areas are much more on policy advocacy, building stakeholder support, building media support, dialogue and conferencing on the different activities in the different countries, and capacity strengthening. Again, also, we contribute on the policy implementation. Here is a guide on development of regulatory frameworks for microbial pesticides in sub-Saharan Africa, which we are working about 5 countries, on biopesticides and biofertilizers. A number of African countries, especially when it comes to biopesticides and biofertilizers, you find there's a lot of products on the market, but there isn't the appropriate regulatory and policy environment that favor their use. Because here what we are looking at is with the mix of, with the different challenges we have, we need a mix of solutions. And we have to look at all areas. And the biofertilizers and biopesticides, one of the areas of which on this continent hasn't been really properly regulated. And I'm glad we are participating in developing favorable environment for that. Just in summary, I will not talk about the agricultural development policy in Africa. We have heard from the PS. In Rwanda, we have heard about the PS and the Director General. But I'm glad that the approaches resonates well with ATF goals and mandate. And these are the areas of which I'm glad we have started discussing with the assistance of Director General Rab and his team on mechanization, seed systems, hybrid development, biotechnology, and research and technology transfer. And the different players, I'm glad who are here, requesting your support so that we can realize what it is. In conclusion, we believe that the smallholders deserve the best of the agricultural technologies that is appropriate. I must emphasize that. And science and technology must play a vital role in the agricultural transformation. And the success depends on all of us together, working effectively through partnership across both public and private sectors. And that's what we want to see in the long run. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chetere. Lights on, please. And may we please give him another round of claps to appreciate his presentation. At this juncture, I think this is where I let go, and I invite the moderator of the next session to pick up the board chair so that we can run to the more exciting role.
All right, so let's move quickly to the panel to catch up a little bit of the time that we have lost. Okay, you don't need this one, right? Okay, very good. All right, so what I will do is just quickly to call the panel participants to come and join me here. Dr. Dr. Deepak Das, Mr. Innocent Namuhoranye, Dr. Sani Kayode, Dr. Placid Rukondo, Dr. Charles Bukagu, Dr. Richard Ferguson, and Mr. Eric Bukeye. Come and please and join me. You have your name tags here. So while you're coming, let me just comment about what you've seen ATF is trying to do. There's quite a lot that needs to be done for agriculture to be a sustainable, thriving business. But I think what we've just seen from the presentation, what we also heard from the Director General of RAB and the Permanent Secretary, actually is give us enough reason for hope that we are getting a handle on some of the problems. But how do we go to scale? How do we spread progress is something that is going to be very important for us to think about. I will be introducing the panelists as they take the floor, so we don't use a lot of time doing that. What we would like in this panel is to go further in depth to basically discuss what we heard from not just the executive director, but also what we could touch upon from the two statements by the Permanent Secretary and the Director of RAB. We heard them talk about mechanizations, seed systems, hybrid technology, investment, and the like. precision agriculture. All those issues are extremely important. So I would like to start with the first topic on the mechanization, where we have to do what we can to raise the productivity of labor and land, but primarily land by using mechanization. And here I would say we understand mechanization all along the value chain, not just in terms of tractors, although often we show tractors when we want to talk about that. And here I would like to start with Dr. Deepak Das. Is Deepak around here? Okay, there you go. All right, so while you're coming, Dr. Dash is head of Agricultural Mechanization Department and the coordinator of postgraduate studies at the College of Agriculture and Veterinary Medicine in the University of Rwanda. So welcome for joining us. Dr. Dash, I'm sure you've started thinking about the challenges of mechanization, especially in a country like Rwanda because of the typology, the topology, but also just in general in Africa. So we would like you to reflect a little bit, maybe not too much about the challenges, but where you see the opportunities and what kind of business models would you imagine to move the agenda on mechanization across Africa? Just briefly, 3 minutes, and then we'll go back to discussions once everybody has gotten a bit of time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can I start?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. If you see the 5 best innovations, among the 5 best innovations of 20th century, mechanization is one of them. And Rwanda has its own mechanization strategy, and at present about 32,000 hectares of land been mechanized. That includes from land management up to processing. That's about 20% of all farm operations. In fact, the target was 54% by 2020. We have challenges, but at this stage it's going very well under the well-organized schemes. And mostly the growth of mechanization is on the eastern part of the country due to its flat topography. And at present, 5,000 individual farmers are engaged in farm mechanizations, and about 20 farmers cooperatives are engaged in active farm mechanization practice. That's great if you compare with 2010 and 2009. That's a great achievement. In University of Rwanda, where I belong to, I come from the School of Agriculture Engineering. It's the only one school in the country, and of course in the East African region. And I'm heading the mechanization department. So we have adopted Made in Rwanda policy in our strategic plan of the department. And so far, we have developed about 26 innovative agriculture machineries through the project of final year students. And if you see the online recognition from FARA exhibitions, still it is on the online. It has been widely appreciated. The department has taken the initiative to develop prototype low-cost agriculture machineries, particularly focusing to smallholders of the country. And we have been engaged in sensitizing them, and we have 3 strategies at this time. And we are at the strategy number 1 implementation, that is to suit the particular local conditions, those innovative machineries. Then we have the progressive strategy, that is to upgrade the technology with the help of partner and the government. And the third one, we have participative, where we'll include agribusiness, society, financial institutions, and others. We have challenges. We have real challenges to upgrade our prototypes to commercial standards, and we are expecting to have funding from University of Rwanda. Of course, we are trying to collaborate with Rwanda Agriculture Board, especially with the DDG Agriculture. We have been in touch. Now, coming to the point of challenges, yes, challenges are there. One of them, according to me, this loan, we prefer soft loan.
So financing, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
We prefer. I mean, that's our wish. And also, we need to encourage somehow rebate while importing the raw materials to manufacture agricultural tools or prototype agriculture machineries. We need also government to come up with the rebate systems to the importer.
Very good.
And also we need a model that, let's say, if 1 kilowatt electricity is X Rwandan franc for domestic use, we prefer that to come forward with a different model, that if that particular electricity is used for agriculture purpose, it can be a irrigation pump, it can be any device, so the cluster should not be up to that level, to a certain level where farmers can afford. That, of course, it's a policy matter. And we prefer the model of other countries, other successful country, that we invest more, but expecting return less, loosening controls, in order to facilitate, those direct subsidies to the producers, to the farmers, to the cooperatives. The problem is, if we go to debit credit, that what I'm investing today, I'm importing a tractor by $5,000 and I'm giving subsidy this much or support this much, that may not work according to us. That may not work. We have to rethink that the countries like China and India, from 2006, we have a model that government, initially, government was pumping the money to a state. But before it reached to the farmer, the beneficiary, there was some erosion and other dilutions. So now the policy is direct subsidy system to the farmer or the farmer cooperative. And those countries, it's not that how much I invested and how much I'm getting return. That should not be one of the constraints to upgrade the mechanization to the level.
A lot of food for thought there. Certainly the development of locally adapted machinery is extremely important. And as you said, it proves that it can be done, but then your challenge is how do you get to scale? That's where loan comes in. That's where import tariffs comes in. That's where subsidies come in, and those kind of things. And I think that's completely true. Unless you fix those different policy items, it's going to be very hard to success in mechanization. But the fact that you're already focusing on developing adapted tools from here and prototyping them, and so many already, probably tells us that maybe technically we have a solution. Is in terms of policy and finance and other things that we may have an issue. Thank you for that. And I'm sure the audience will have something to say about it. As mechanization help us do things better and faster and cheaper, they work only if you get proper planting material, the seeds that allows you to be able to pay for the piece of machinery. So seed systems are extremely important. And that's why I would like to turn to Mr. Innocent Namu Horanye. Is it correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, of course, looking at the system, it's huge, right? What needs to happen there. But whenever you say a system, you have something quite complex. But I would like you perhaps just to help us discuss a little bit what you see as the main barriers in a country like Rwanda. I remember when I first came to Rwanda in '98 and looked at your rice sector, and I did a study, the average yield was 1.3 tons. And it was not even really clean varieties. You will have 5 or 6 different rice varieties on a plot that will give you the 1.3. Of course, this is far, far behind us, right? But there's still a lot to be done when we heard the director of RAB and also the permanent secretary. So what are your barriers that you still need to deal with to move the dial a little bit in terms of getting quality seeds into the hands of the farmers? And what are you doing about that? How are you moving forward?
Production, but the government is in the process to attract more private role players, to reduce government direct role, and develop a well-regulated seed industry, and reduce Rwanda's dependence on imported seeds. The National Seed Association of Rwanda, in implementing with the government, in complementing government effort, is working to create a continuous and affordable access for farmers to high quality seeds in Rwanda. Yes, we need a reliable, sustainable, and profitable seed system that attracts private investment, but there is some barriers to create a modern seed system in Rwanda. Seed system should not be seen as a separate process, example, purity, quality, traceability, phytosanitary certificate, but managed as a total process. The total result is determined by the weak link in the system, and although the whole process should be divided in key activities, the key is the successful implementation of a total system in one value system. Lack of international accepted process, quality system, and the seed production system currently in place in Rwanda. Like there is no Eastern International Seed Testing Association, OECD, UPOV, but Rwanda is in the process to adopt some of those systems. Also, there is a lack of trained and experienced seed industry professionals to train and implement systems. Good systems need well-trained and well-experienced people to implement them. Separate role and also they need to separate the role of implementer and the certifier. Lab cannot implement the seed system and then certify the implementation. Also, there is a lack of international companies in Rwanda, in Rwanda and the seed industry to assist and bringing new and international systems. Also, there are as well the problem in implementing seed certification scheme. The seed certification starts with the proper, pure, and certified breeder, seed from the breeder of the variety, like a PCL. Testing will ensure pure, no segregation breeder seeds. Increase of parent seeds need to be in close cooperation with the breeders to ensure the pure parent seeds are given to the farmers. Proper and detailed seed production protocol need to be developed and implemented for certified seed production. Also, the seed production need to be demonstrated to farmers on elite seed production unity to show the link and the management to farmers. Seed producers need to receive guidance from seed inspectors to assist them on planting, fertilization, detasseling, and harvesting. Seed inspectors should get practical and theoretical training from experienced institutions. Proper seed quality testing, ESTA, should be implemented to ensure good germination and purity. PCR or SNPS are laboratory tests that determine the genetic purity in the seed line or hybrids. For seed business being more profitable, we are looking for improvement of yielding in seed production. Therefore, local adoption trial for seed production should be done to ensure optimal seed planting population, fertilization, and the pest control measures, seed treatment, sprint planting for optimal pollination, irrigation techniques, and the frequent planting time. To have the correct production information is the key to good advisor to seed producers and the ability to increase their yields. Establish a seed production test and they show unity to demonstrate to farmers how to achieve optimal seed yields. Planting show and the learning a seed production field will show farmers the optimal seed production practice. Create a job professional of seed production advisors, learn the personal details of the seed production in practice and the theory by creating an official course for them. The net result should be like a diploma or accreditation in Rwanda. Training of seed producers, input suppliers, seed production advisors, seed companies, and agencies in optimal production practice and the protocol is the key to increase the yield of farmers. Create a proper seed production protocol to be verified and certified by RICA or any certified agents. This time I think it's under Rwanda Agriculture Board. Also to ensure that only proper certified parent seed is planted by growers. Thank you.
Thank you, Murakoze. So let me then say that Mr. Namuhoranye is the chairman of the National Seed Association in Rwanda. You mentioned quite a lot of important things, just thinking about the keywords, breeding, quality of seeds, demonstrations, and testing, certification, extension, and seed multiplication. All issues that I think Dr. Sani Kayode deals with as he tries within AATF to develop a hybrid line of rice varieties. So if you could, Dr. Kayode, just reflect on those challenges that Innocent Namuhoranye was talking about and guide us through your concrete examples of rice. How do you deal with those issues he's raising, working with some of our partner countries?
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a privilege to be on this panel to discuss on how technology can be used to transform farming in Africa. Firstly, permit me to just say that hybrid technology, it's actually an important technology that can help us to unlock a lot of the bottleneck that exists in the seed system and in the low level of agricultural productivity and production in Africa. Saying that, it means that the use of hybrid allow us to bring two different parents together to get a better product. Because when you look at the level, when you look at why the production in Africa is low, it's because the yield per hectare is low. In the recent years, production have increased in Africa a bit, but the increase in production have been by increase in land area. And as we know that land is limited, it's not sustainable to continually increasing the land size. There's a need to look at how we can increase productivity. And the way to go in that direction is by using the hybrid technology, which have been used to leverage agriculture productivity in some countries. Just the issue of Asia, hybrid rice in China, which has helped them to meet some level. And that is just not enough. Hybrid also helped to leverage the investment of private sector into seed production. For example, in crop like rice and maize, where farmer can reuse their seed, and at the end of the day, the production of the seed is not actually seed that they are using, they are actually using grains, because the technology, just like stated by the seed technology expert, in production of seed is different from the technology for the production of grains. And when farmer produces, what they produce is grains, which does not have the kind of quality that a seed we have to be able to give them the premium quality of a grain that is desired in the market, or which the end users need. And that's one of the challenges that makes the production of crops or cereals in Africa not to be competitive in the market, and why, despite the fact that there's increase in production, people still prefer the imported grains because of that quality. So for that quality to be streamlined, the hybrid technology can help to do that. And that's exactly what we are doing in the hybrid rice production development in Africa, which we have developed a lot of lines, and we have done that also in maize, where farmers are already using that to leverage their production and improve the quality of their grains. In Kenya and some other countries, we are working on that. And in the hybrid rice technology, what we have done so far is to look at the bottlenecks that are existing there, the grain quality, the quality that is existing in the seed system, and how can we steward this? Stewardship of quality control and quality assurance is very, very important if we want to be competitive. So the quality control part has been taken care of. The investment into the system has been taken care of. Now, the challenges that face hybrid production in Africa is one of the technical capacity, to be able to have the capacity which we have built in the maize project, we have built it in the rice project. Currently in the rice project, we have different companies that have sent their staff for training, and they're under training to build a breeding system for the technology. That is one. The second thing is that hybrid is what can actually help us to build agribusiness in terms of to make agriculture to become a business in Africa. And it's a win-win thing in hybrid technology. The farmer has his gain in the value in terms of yield advantage, and the the seed companies have their gain. So it encourages them to invest. Now, the important thing is, will the farmers, the smallholder farmers in Africa, be able to afford that seed? But I will not put that question that way. I will put the question this way: how will we be able to assist or help the farmers to be able to understand the importance of of hybrid technology and be able to buy the seed? Good example is in maize. We have seen the open population that was used by the farmer, moving from getting 40 kilogram per acre to 450 kilogram per acre. When we demonstrate this to farmer, the yield advantage to farmer, we will not have to really talk to the farmer to buy the seed. When they see it, they come for the seed. So the business is oiled, and then transformation can happen because there's already an increase in productivity.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up? The questions he raised, how do you deal with the issue of breeding and purity and quality? How do you deal with the issue of certification? How do you deal with the issue of multiplication? If you could use the example of rice or maize just to share it with the audience, because we know the outcomes, but how does it get done? When you train the seeds companies, what do you train them on so they can get the kind of quality he's talking about? So the very real nice nitty-gritty technical things that you do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you very much. The aspect that is very important is the quality of the seed. And this has to start from the policy of every country on seed certification. And when this policy is there, you need a good technical know-how to be able to regulate. So the capacity building starts from the level of the regulators. So the regulators must have the capacity to do that. What we have done in some of our project country, for instance, in Kenya, we have been able to partner with KEFIS to be able to train private regulators who have now the capacity to regulate the quality of the seed in the market. The second part is the development of standard operation procedures that can actually help different seed companies to be able to understand the minimum standard required by the regulation of each country and the international system on seed certification. So when you have that good standard in operation, that can actually help in ensuring that the seed system has good quality seed flows. And also that we are already working under the policy system to ensure that there's the harmonization system in the East African community, in the ECOWAS community, in the SADC community is being unified so that if you produce a seed in Rwanda, it can easily move and be released in Uganda and so on. So now we build the capacity of the company. That is by sending their seed producers into our system. In the hybrid rice, what we have done so far is that each company sent representation to a training. And it's building capacity on seed, on breeding and seed development in technology. It's not a weak training. It's not just, when you do the weak training, you have a little theoretical knowledge. But if you really want a sustainable one, it has to be a durable training, which the people will follow the process of development from beginning to the end. And those that are going to go into the seed production follow the production of the seed from beginning to the end, at least during 2 seasons, to be able to have the hands-on practicality of it. It's not about theory. It's about hands-on doing of it that can actually make us have sustainability. That is why a lot of the trained seed experts are not able to actually implement what they have learned because they don't have the hands-on. We need a thorough hands-on in the training capacity.
Very good. Thank you. And as we see from the executive director, you and your team have succeeded in putting out 247 hybrid rice lines, which we sure are going to be reaching the farmers and are already doing it right now. So a good example that it can be done. And I think that's an experience we can share with our friends here in Rwanda. Now, you talked about hybrid, which is, of course, a very advanced technology. The challenges are broader than just yields and some of those traits. You know, dealing with pests, with diseases, with changing weather requires, of course, broader portfolio of technologies, and biotechnology or GMO is one of them. And I would like to perhaps reflect on that a little bit, and I'm going to be calling on Dr. Rukondo, who is a senior scientist, Roots and Tubers program leader at RAB, to discuss with us a little bit. When we hear about biotechnology and GMO, people think about issues of safety, issues of health. They probably don't see the potential to deal with pests and diseases and a changing weather and the like. So while those risks are there, they're manageable, they can be managed. The opportunities are less emphasized very often. So I would like you to just tell us, while Rwanda is working on its biosafety bill, how you see the issues of opportunities and challenges in using modern science to breed better plant varieties for the Rwandese farmers to meet the challenges of today, pests and diseases and the like.
Thank you, Chair. It is the opportunity to be here. About biotechnology, sometimes when you...
Do you want to put your mics on, maybe? Is it off? No, he has a mic, right? You're wired, no? Okay, it's from there, right? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It is the honor to be here. About biotechnology, when we say about biotechnology, in most cases, it is very difficult to understand. mainly, what you understand by biotechnology is the use of any living organisms or its derivative to make or to produce, to make or to modify a product or the process. We know that the biotechnology has a high potential to sustain agriculture productivity. That is why in Rwanda, some application of biotechnology were adopted and applied currently. This is the case where some techniques of biotechnology are available and applied to avail clean planting material where tissue culture is applied. We know also the current application of biotechnology in biofertilizer to produce a biofertilizer, where rhizobia is produced to and applied to produce soybean as an alternative to mineral fertilizer. When you look in terms of disease indexing, biotechnology is applied to identify pathogens agent that causing the disease. We know also the role of biotechnology, which is now applied currently to monitor and to control disease pests such as fall armyworm, where pheromone traps are under utilization. I can't forget about application of biotechnology in animal production, where artificial insemination is commonly practiced for genetic improvement of cows in Rwanda, and the current technology of embryo transfer development. When I look in terms of, I can say, short-term planning or biotechnology application, we think about testing genetic engineered crops such as potato, resistant to late blight, where an application was prepared and submitted for approval to carry out confined field trial. We have some other cases of banana, of cassava, to test some GMO, genetically modified cassava, resistant to brown streak virus, the current destructive disease that we have in the cassava production system. In addition to that, we have also, we are planning to integrate the molecular tools in the breeding process to accelerate the selection process and to reduce the time needed to develop and to release a new variety in Rwanda. I can't forget again the use of Afrasafe to control mycotoxin, the commonly known aflatoxin, which is commonly found in some commodities such as maize and as susceptible commodities. When I look in terms of opportunity that we have now, the value of biotechnology to sustain the agriculture system is well known. This is the opportunity that we have in this country. We know the value of biotechnology to improve the productivity by reducing the constraints, abiotic and abiotic constraints. We know the role of biotechnology to enhance the value, the nutrition content by enhancing vitamin content, mineral, and proteins. We know the value of biotechnology in terms of food security, where biotechnology is applied to reduce the post-harvest losses. At that point, there is also another opportunity that we have, the government support. The biotechnology biotechnology as a tool was highlighted in the PSTF 4, where it was highlighted that in biotechnology, the country will have a proper registration system of GMOs to handle GMOs. And also in terms of capacity development, in terms of infrastructure and human resources. This is another opportunity that we have about biotechnology. I can also highlight about collaboration among research institution, development partners. This collaboration is also very important as opportunity to speed up the biotechnology and for agriculture transformation in Rwanda. Even though we have some opportunities, I cannot forget about challenges that we have. For instance, the low progress in biotechnology development and application seems to be very low because of, we cannot forget about views, negative views about biotechnology products. We know that is required the awareness, to raise awareness through a proper way of communication. Again, about legal framework. This is really a big challenge because we don't have a legal framework for biosafety to handle genetically modified crop. I can highlight others such as large engagement of citizen, participatory research where many end users are participating in biotechnology development. We think that we need to change, this approach has to be changed to, because we know that participatory will increase the adoption. On agreement and the protocols. When you look in terms of people working on biotechnology on our side and the lawyers, in most cases are not involved in those negotiations. This is a big challenge because a scientist has to be involved and know to make a good agreement that will bring a value addition of what is going on. As I can say some point to be considered as in biotechnology to sustain agriculture transformation in Rwanda. I can highlight some points. For instance, we need to develop a coherent and a consistent policy about biotechnology and GMOs. We needed to ensure safe utilization of biotechnology products. We needed to manage, to bring the managing intellectual property rights. This is also a very key important to speed up the application of biotechnology in Rwanda. We needed to support public education and awareness, and also we need to attract investors to invest in agriculture biotechnology. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. I think a lot of the points that you raise center around what needs to be done for biotechnology to succeed. And a big hurdle we have now in a lot of African countries is that we perhaps look at biotechnology in a different way. First, we equate it with GMO. It's broader than GMO, but also the position you find in most African countries, which is we take or we don't take, we embrace or we don't embrace, is such a passive and sterile way of looking at this. I think biotechnology is going to be part of the future, whether we want it or not, right? But second, biotechnology is not what you take or what you don't take from others. Biotechnology is, do you have the expertise? Do you have the laboratories? Do you have the instruments? Do you have the personal regulatory aspect? Just what you're talking about. So we have to put our economies in a position to be able to master and harness biotechnology safely for our population. That's really what it should be. We often just put a definition, oh, it's good, it's bad, I take, I don't take. It is so passive, and it doesn't help us move forward. So thank you for talking about that. Before I talk about research and technology transfer, I want to ask Richard Ferguson to talk about precision agriculture. And why I would like you to come now at this stage is that mechanization, seed systems, hybrid, biotechnology are dealing with the material, in this case here, and here with new tools, right? But all of that to succeed depends on how we do business, how we practice agriculture. And precision agriculture is, I think, one of the ways that we can meet the challenges of the future, where we'll be dealing with much more scarce water, scarce land, and what have you. If you don't deal with that, forget about all these technologies. I don't think it's going to work. So that's why I wanted you to come here before we talk about technology transfer. So if you just could, with our audiences here, explain a little bit more what we mean by precision agriculture.
often associated with high-tech and very complex things. Therefore, some of us ask, is this something that could be useful for the smallholder? So if you just could help answer those two questions, what do you mean by that, and why do you think it a feasible path for the smallholder farmer in Africa? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for the question. And I thank you and the organizers, RAB and AATF, for the opportunity to represent the Rwanda Institute for Conservation Agriculture here, RICA. If I may briefly describe RICA as a new institute of higher education in Rwanda. It's a project that's being partnered by the government of Rwanda and the Howard G. Buffett Foundation to provide an institute that provides an opportunity for experiential education to develop new innovators in agriculture for Rwanda and East Africa. And we very much look forward to partnering with many of you as RICA conducts our education, research, and extension efforts in the future. Precision agriculture is one of those technologies that we will be teaching at RICA. I would back up and say, before my career took me into academic administration, I spent 25 years as a researcher and educator in precision agriculture in the U.S. I'm also a member of the International Society of Precision Agriculture, and that society not much dissimilar to how smallholder farmers might operate in Rwanda today at a very small scale and entirely by hand. And in doing so, those farmers had an intimate knowledge of their land resource, of areas that were more or less productive, and the yield potential and the profitability of their land. They knew their land well. I would say a smallholder farmer in Rwanda is in some ways a precision agriculturalist because they know much about every location on their farm in terms of the productivity and the profitability of that location. As farms get larger in size, the capacity for a farmer to know intimately their land decreases. And so often today, precision agriculture is thought of as the underlying technology that allows us to manage at larger scale. But it's not strictly the technology. The computers and GPS technology and sensors that we think of as being part of precision agriculture today are only tools that a producer can use to enable improved management. So I would say that very much a smallholder farmer in Rwanda has potential to be a precision agriculturalist as well. What we anticipate teaching at RICA is how we can bring technologies to scale in an appropriately scale-sensitive way to a smallholder farmer. Are there mechanization approaches or data approaches that perhaps cooperatives or enterprises can bring to a smallholder farm that allow them to understand and track what's occurring on their farm over time and in space? And in those ways, we expect that we can make farmers in Rwanda more profitable and more efficient and more productive through the use of precision technologies.
Thank you very much for that very short, brief, but very clear explanation of precision agriculture, and also for confirming that is actually a useful practice for a smallholder because they're already doing something like it. So it's the mindset is there, it's now the tools that we're trying to improve and to scale up, which is quite good. Talking about scaling up tools and delivering them, we heard the other speakers here. All these beautiful technologies and seeds and varieties have to be extended. They have to be transferred to the farmers, which is the biggest challenge that we have, whether we're scaling prototypes or we are ensuring good quality seed gets into the hands of farmers. So I would like to ask Dr. Charles Bukagu, Deputy Director General in charge of Ag Research and Technology Transfer at RAB, to reflect with us, hearing all what we heard here, and most of it actually applies to Rwanda itself. How do you ensure that these fine technologies are delivered, are transferred, that they reach the farmers? We know that it's not government, probably. We heard the private sector operators. We heard international cooperation, others. How do you see all those different actors working together to make sure that we can transfer? How do you get the agribusiness to be that big link between generation of technologies and extension and use to make the delivery system as efficient as possible? So I'm sure this is something you think about every day when you go to work. So I would like you just to introduce that topic for our audience here. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Well, if we can just put in a context the linkage between technology development and the technology transfer, is that this is going to be a model to drive the PSTA4. This is a strategic plan for agricultural transformation, and we emphasize on the role of that private sector will play into that. And it's a dramatic change because the Minagri and RAB used to be the only, seen to be the only institution to play a major role in agricultural development the last few years. But with the change that's going to be happening through the implementation of strategic plan, the 7 years strategic plan for agricultural transformation, that we're going to see more players, more people to come in, to join with the RAB and Minagri and the other players to really take the agriculture to another sector, to another level. So I would probably base my reflection on some few examples. So my colleague was talking about seed systems. So, and he mentioned, my DG mentioned about how we now moving towards a massive use of hybrids, seeds in this country, which was not the case a few years ago. So we used to rely on one single OPV, that is ZM607, over the last 50 years. And this is a Zambian variety, used to yield 1 to 2 tons per hectare. And all farmers wanted to have ZM607. But if you go to the farmers now, nobody wants to have it. No one wants to take it. So they are talking about hybrid. Actually, hybrid is becoming a new term in our language. We talk about a hybrid. So this is a dramatic change. And moving towards what we want to achieve is productivity, increase the productivity, which is increasing production at single hectare. And the link to that is the return on investment. So and this process, this journey, RAB is together with farmers. It is together with the seed multipliers, it together with the seed processors, and we are seeing more people, investors, very much interested in playing a role in seed multiplication. Just in this season, we are going to distribute more than 2,000 metric tons that were multiplied through with the private seed multipliers, not RAB. So this is a clear manifestation of the government willingness to partner with the private sector to address very specific challenges, and that will contribute towards achieving PSTA4. The second example that I can give is the post-harvest handling. You see, this is a major issue when it comes to agriculture transformation. Just to give you numbers, we are losing about 30% of production in grains, cereals, due to poor post-harvest handling. And, but also associated to that, I may also talk about the risk of aflatoxin infestation in commodities like maize. But with this fiscal year, government is investing about 11 billion to boost the post-harvest facilities and the infrastructure in this country. And these will also be achieved through partnership with private. So some of these infrastructure will be built by individuals, private investors who will play a major role as well. As we speak now, we have private people who want to come in seed production, seed processing, seed packaging, but also distribution. This is a major change. So what we anticipate to see in a few years is the situation where we'll be seeing RAB play a role of capacity building, but also regulatory framework, setting up regulatory framework, but letting private sector take the lead right from production up to the commercialization. Another example that I want to share with you is the development of irrigation infrastructure in this country. As the DG said this morning, we have this target of doubling land under irrigation in 7 years to come. Basically moving from 53,000 to 102,000 hectares in 2024. And to achieve this is not about RAB only, it's about partnership, it's about collaboration, it's about putting in incentives for private sector to make it attractive for private sector to come in. So we are talking about development of large-scale irrigation infrastructure, government with partners, but also provide incentives for the farmers to acquire small-scale irrigation technologies. This is a very good example where private sector play a major role. But to achieve this, there is a challenge. Not everything is running smoothly. The private sector we are talking about need capacity. It needs to get knowledge. So we need to position ourselves as RAB to provide the required training, the required capacity building. There is also the issues of funding. We're talking about development technology. We're developing technology through research. So research requires resources, requires financing. And we are not seeing government to provide, only providing public funds to support research. Research funding has also to come from industry. So we are talking about industry to be able to develop research. Because research challenges, we are talking about problems. If you have problems, problems have to be identified, priority have to be identified by the technology users that should be able to contribute in research development. So we are looking at that synergy between research institution, but also technology users to build that capacity to develop research. So I may probably end by emphasizing on the issues of multidisciplinarity and collaboration, because I believe that to be able to achieve the goal, to be able to achieve the productivity is not a one-man show. It has to be a joint. It has to be collaboration. So researchers need to understand that to be able to achieve the goal, to address problems, you have to have that partnership. You have to broaden networking. So this is my contribution. Thank you.
Very good, and that's been quite broad. You do emphasize the private sector quite a bit. You also emphasize funding and loans around that. You know, the private sector is so important nowadays, and has always been. Maybe I have neglected it in the past. I often sympathize with our colleagues, ministers of agriculture or RAB or others, compared, let's say, to the Minister of Health or Education. Government can do health and education much more readily than agriculture. You hire the doctors, you hire the teachers, you put the labs in there, and you put the equipment, and almost you solve a lot of the problem. That's not in farming, right? So you have millions of individual farmers. You have so many people in between, and you want them all to do something that's exactly aligned with the goal of the government. How do you orchestrate that? It's so extremely difficult. So that's why the private sector, including the farmers, are going to be so important in accessing this technology and using them and scaling them up. So I think that's extremely important that you're going that path. But that it requires funding, has to be financed. And that's what I'm going to be turning to